Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. Am I wrong for telling my dad's wife I own the house she lives in? My 29 female dad married a woman named Maria a year ago after dating for 4 years. My dad wanted to buy a larger house for them to live in, but couldn't afford it without selling the home he lived in at the time, which is a unique property that he dearly loves. Although I now live abroad, I like the area he lives in, so my husband and I offered to buy a house there that my dad and Maria could live in. My dad agreed to this on the proviso that we not tell Maria that it wasn't him who paid for the house. This made no difference to me, so I agreed. So the house they live in is in my name, and they live there. I never planned to tell her. Recently, I went back to my home country and decided to stay with my dad for half my time there. And the whole time, Maria made it clear I was an inconvenience and that me doing things with my dad was annoying to her. But I'm not a confrontational person and I don't react too much, so I let it go. However, 2 days before I was due to leave, she came into my room and saw that I had my dad's dog on the bed. Now, this is a dog that my dad has had since before he met Maria and that I raised. Maria doesn't allow him on her bed, which is fine, but I've always had him sleep on mine. She flipped out, saying this was the final straw, that she'd had enough of me disrespecting her in her own home and that I had to leave. I tried to de-escalate the situation, saying we should just wait for my dad and sit down and talk this out, but she was adamant that I had to leave and that she had the authority to make me. After several minutes of me trying to explain to her that it was absurd of her to try and kick me out of my dad's house without talking to him, she said that what she said went, and since she married my dad, this is technically her house. I just chuckled and said, since my name is on the deed, it's technically my house. But there's no need to get technical, we should just wait for my dad. She was shocked and left the room. When my dad came back, I told him what happened, and he went to speak to her. There was a shouting match, and she didn't speak to either of us until I left 2 days later. My dad is mad, I told her, which I get, but since then, I've also got texts from her kids saying I was wrong for telling her and making her feel like a guest in the house. This isn't the case, she isn't a guest, she's a tenant. But so is my dad, and the only point I was trying to make was that she didn't have any business trying to kick me out of my father's house, let alone my own property. I didn't take it there until she did. That said, maybe I should have just left the ownership out and let my dad handle it. Edit. For everyone talking about Maria being a tenant and tenants' rights. She doesn't pay rent, so I don't know if that makes her a tenant technically. If it does, then as a landlord, I'm pretty sure I have legal recourse over the remodeling she did without notifying me or my approval. And anyway, I wasn't there as a landlord, I was there as a guest of another tenant, and actually she did have several weeks notice I was coming in any case. I'm sure it's a legal rabbit hole, but the only reason I use the word tenant is to say that since she lives there, she isn't a guest in the home. Now for the top comments. Now wrong. She internally struggled with wanting you to do what she wanted. It escalated due to her need to be the boss in her house with, you disrespect me in my house. You were gracious to allow her to save face several times. You offered options, call my dad. This type of personality will lose it once they know they don't have control. You did not make her feel anything. She created this situation. You again are gracious to allow them to enjoy a beautiful home. Maybe she feels deceived by your father, but the children need to pipe down. It was your first visit, and she was not cordial to you. The children were expecting that house to go to them eventually. I mean, then they would want to know it's not their mom's in that case, and would be pressuring OP to deed it over. OP keeping quiet only continues their father's lie to his new wife, who sounds kinda like a chore. My guess is kids are used to steadying her boat. Not wrong. In the comment, OP points out 1. It's a furniture owned by OP, and 2. They do not pay to live there. If I am doing someone a solid only to be disrespected like that, I'm done doing the solid. The stepmom is obviously a gold digger on a power trip. Yes, OP agreed not to say anything, but she didn't agree to being disrespected in the home she lets these people live for free in. Oh, for real, she definitely wants that house when he is gone. Or at least for him to leave the house to her kids. Not wrong, but good luck. Next story. Am I the idiot for returning presents my wife got for her friends' kids because they cost too much and impacted me buying what I wanted for my daughter? I work full-time, and my wife, 35 female, barely works part-time since she can't handle full-time work. Whatever she earns, she keeps for herself and her personal expenses, and I pay for all of our living expenses. I'm content with this arrangement. She does have access to my personal account in case she ever winds up needing a bit of extra money. My only stipulation is that, if it's going to be over $150, tell me about it first. In the 5 years we've been together, there have been a number of times she's helped her friend buy birthday or Christmas presents for her kids. Once or twice she's been short on what she wanted to spend and has taken from my account to cover expenses. Cool, no biggie, because she told me about it beforehand, and it was never anything too extravagant. This year, her friend is needing help again, and my wife brought up helping her out and she may need to borrow some money from me. I told her that was okay, but to not exceed $300 this year. I have a 16-year-old daughter from my previous relationship, and with our financial arrangement, my wife is hands-off when it comes to finances concerning my daughter. Her mother and I decided to split the cost of a used car for her for Christmas. Then my wife did her shopping for her friends' kids, and when she got home, she told me she exceeded the limit by a lot, like closer to $850 spent. When my wife told me that, I told her she had to take it all back and get cheaper things, and that I gave her a limit and why. My wife insisted she couldn't take it all back, because she already told her friend what all she got, and her friend was over the moon. She felt it was unfair that less fortunate kids had to get less so my daughter could have a car, and asked that I talk about delaying the car purchase with my daughter's mother. I told her absolutely not. Said she wouldn't take them back. When she went to shower later in the day, I took her purchases and the receipts and returned them myself. I was able to get cheaper, generic versions of some of the items, but not all. My wife is unhappy about this and has been cold after calling me controlling and unwilling to compromise. I think I compromise plenty, but my daughter comes before one of her friend's kids. Was I wrong? Okay. To me, even paying $300 for gifts for someone else's family seems excessive. But $850? It's not your responsibility to cover for gifts for another family. Absolutely, you're in the right. I thought $300 would be sufficient to split between two teens, which would allow for 1 or 2 nice gifts for each kid. It absolutely is. I never received $425 in Christmas presents from my parents. $150 is much closer to reality. And you guys aren't even these kids' parents. Not even just $850, but $850 of OP's money, plus whatever his wife spent of her own money, and whatever the friend spent for her own kids. How much money is being spent on these kids? Honestly, with that much, I would definitely want to look at the receipts and make sure it wasn't gifts for her. I did look at the receipts, and none of it was for her. The biggest expenses were a VR set and a digital art tablet or screen type thing. Not wrong, and I would kick her off the account. She agreed and she broke the agreement that was on her. And I would further explain that my obligation to my daughter far exceeds the wife's obligation to the friend, and that her failure to understand that, and that she took extra money from the account, is why she will no longer have access to that account. I wonder if wife's friend is a secret partner. I can't imagine spending that much on a friend's kids. Do the kids even know that wife is the gift giver and not the mother or Santa? Rant, gifts from Santa always irk me. I guess it's the long game to make kids behave for some time because someone is watching them. Yes, I read the kids are teenaged. OP is not in the wrong. Next story. Am I wrong for giving my son his own hotel room, but making my daughter share with a cousin she doesn't know? Me 30 female and my husband 49 male have been married for 2 years. We have a baby that is almost a year old. I have 2 kids, Rory 12 male and Emily 12 female, of my own, while my husband has 2 sons from a previous marriage, 13 males. My kids had to share a room since they were born, but once I got married, we moved to a bigger house and they could have their own rooms. My daughter was happy about it, but my son had a really hard time adapting to this. He didn't like being alone, and he got scared a lot, crying all night and peeing himself, but he eventually adapted to the new reality and has been more stable. A sister of my husband is getting married in Hawaii, and the whole family is going there for a big destination wedding. The idea was for the kids to share rooms by sets of 2. Emily would have to stay with one of my husband's nieces. Rory would share with one of his stepbrothers, and the other one with another cousin. But that didn't work. Rory says that he doesn't want to share a room with none of his stepbrothers because they smell bad. He told me to allow him to stay with his sister, but Emily doesn't want that. The only other option was to put him with one of the other male cousins, but he warned me that if it turns out that they also smell bad, he would refuse to stay in the room once we were there and go sleep on the rainforest. Finally, I begged for my husband to pay for another room, so Rory can be alone and I wouldn't have to suffer any more of this. But now Emily is mad because she says it is unfair, that her brother will have his own room, but she has to share with a cousin she doesn't know. I think she should understand that her brother has a harder time in this kind of situations than her, and not make everything even more difficult for me. Emily is a really social and extrovert girl. She didn't complain about this issue before. I feel she is just being petty, but now she is angry with me, and I don't know what else to do. Am I the idiot? Now for the top comments. Yes, you are. Have you ever considered parenting your son? Nope, too busy making a baby and new family with her much older and likely much wealthier new husband. They've done about as poor a job of blending this family as possible. There are so many stories on here of parents doing terrible jobs of blending families and treating their children well. Perfectly exemplifies the biggest reason why second marriages are more likely to fail than first marriages. My mom is on her fourth. Any stats on those? Yes, you are wrong. Your son gets rewarded for acting up, and your daughter is left behind because she doesn't complain enough. You are not parenting your son, and it's your daughter that suffers the consequences. OMG, that was me growing up. I'd be the good girl. My brother would kick off and get his way, because it was easier for them to give in than argue with him. If I then kicked off because it saw how unfair it was, I'd be disciplined. You're the idiot. They smell bad is not a flipping excuse. Let him sleep in the rainforest. Or you could try acting like a parent. This. And do they actually smell bad? Seems like a weird excuse for a preteen. If they actually do smell bad, beyond the inevitable mild teen boy funk, that would be another parenting issue. These are OP's stepsons, and if they need to have basic hygiene reinforced, that's a job for both parents. Exactly. Those boys are starting puberty, and teen boys aren't exactly known for their excellent hygiene. The parents need to make sure the boys understand when and how they should keep up their hygiene now. Last story. Am I wrong for not allowing my sister to make her kids food at my house during our Christmas party? I come from a broken home, so we have our Christmas with mom's side the first weekend of December. I 44 male hosted, usually my sister and I switch off host duties. My sister has two daughters who are incredibly picky eaters at 18 and 15 years old. My sister would come to family parties with a box of pasta and a bag of frozen chicken tenders that she will make for her daughters. I want to know if I'm in a hole for what I did here. I knew that is her drill with them, but I've always found it to be very annoying, especially when I'm trying to cook and she's taking up space making the pasta and chicken tenders. This year, I told my wife we will not be letting my sister in the kitchen this year, and the girls will have the choice of eating what I prepared or not eating at all. My sister accused me of being a cynic and getting joy from watching the girls be uncomfortable. I told her they are old enough to eat like adults. Also, the food I make is pretty standard. I do a filet roast, BBQ ribs, cheesy potatoes, stuffed artichoke, breaded cauliflower, ratatouille, and a salad. Certainly, some of these must be foods that an 18 and 15-year-old should be able to eat. Well, the girls sat and ate bread and butter while telling me that my food looked gross. I looked to my sister to calm them down, but she told me I deserved this, and it's not their fault for being picky eaters. I know I could have just let my sister do her thing, but it was the principle of the situation. I'm not sure if I was being a petty a-hole, or if I had a legitimate reason to be upset. Edit. There are no medical conditions or food allergies. I made it clear to my sister in advance that I would not be allowing this. She decided not to listen. I did not anticipate this blow up, but I am willing to compromise. If the girls really won't try new things, my sister can make their food at home and bring it. No. You told your sister ahead of time that you would not allow her to use your kitchen. If she was that concerned, she could have declined your invite or fed her kids before showing up. Her kids being rude was uncalled for. That's why I think I might not be in the wrong. I made it clear to her beforehand that I wouldn't be allowing this. No, they are 18 and 15, not little kids. They can be picky, but you don't have to accommodate that. It's very annoying to have someone come into the kitchen and taking up space when you're cooking a big meal. They really had a third option as well, which is pack a freaking sandwich and eat that. Takes zero kitchen space or accommodation. Fourth option. Stuff your face before you get there. I have used this option many times over the years. This is how people turn 30 and still refuse to eat anything but pizza and chicken nuggets. No one is being forced at gunpoint to eat what you make. They can eat before or after the party if starvation is such a risk. Agreed. The girls need to get used to going places where their mommy won't make them a kiddie menu. They aren't picky eaters if they've never eaten anything besides what they could tolerate when they were 6. They're limited eaters, and that is 100% the result of their mothers coddling them. I wouldn't cater to them either. They're guests in someone's home. Unless they have allergies or sensory issues, they either accept the invitation and the menu or they don't attend. I think they're old enough to start expanding whether they like it or not. If they start trying more foods, they will figure out what they like. My sister is coddling them. I can't tell you the number of times we've been at a restaurant, and she asks the server if they could make pasta and butter. Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. Am I wrong for refusing to visit my parents after they tried to get me and my ex back together? I'm 26 female, ex is 28 male, we'll call him Tom. Tom and I dated for a couple of years, and my parents absolutely loved him, invited him to everything, and constantly talked about him like we were already married. Then he found out he had a kid from a one-night stand from just before we started dating. I tried to roll with it for a few more months after that, but it was just too much to deal with too soon in the relationship for me, and I broke it off. I think it was for the best, though Tom desperately tried to get me to stay and enlisted my parents to talk me out of leaving. I told them to drop it, or I was going to go no contact for a while because I already had a lot to deal with, so they did. This was 6 months ago, and I have Tom blocked on everything. All the mutual friends know the score and are good at keeping things separate, and I'm dating again. So, I show up to Thanksgiving with my parents like usual, and guess who's sitting in the living room? Tom and his son, now 3 I think. He gets up all happy to see me, and I turn around and walk back out, get in the car, and go to my hotel. My mom calls and asks me where I went and why I left, and I told her she knows damn well why, and asked why Tom was there. She told me that they still consider him part of the family, and they love his son and didn't want them to be alone for the holiday. When I asked why she didn't tell me ahead of time, she kind of stalled, and then admitted that she knows I don't want to see him, but that I obviously still love him, and they thought if I could just see how great everything could be, he and I could reconcile. That kind of infuriated me, not gonna lie. I don't want to be a step-parent, or at least not right now, and not in this particular situation. It sucks, but I've processed it and moved on. I told my mom that what they did was wrong and really out of line, and that I was going home. Hope their Thanksgiving with Tom was all they hoped it would be. Then I turned off my phone for the rest of the day. When I finally turned it back on, I had a slew of texts and video messages, some from Tom using my parents' phones. I deleted them without listening to the whole message, and finally called my mom back last week after I had calmed down. She apologized for springing Tom on me, and I told her that she needs to stop hoping we'll get back together, and that I don't want Tom in my life. She admitted that they wanted to invite him for Christmas as well. Evidently, he now has sole custody of the kid, and my parents have been playing grandparent. I told her that any function Tom is at, I won't be at, and if they ever spring him on me again, that will be the last time we speak for a very long time. My parents are accusing me of being cruel by making them choose, and giving an ultimatum, with a side dish of, that little boy needs a family guilt. I don't care if they want a surrogate grandparent or be friends with Tom, but I won't be involved, and I'm hearing from a lot of people that I'm being a petty idiot. Now for the top comments. Not the idiot. The little boy has a family, Tom is his family. If they want to be part of that family, too, fine. But they can find ways to do it that respect your desire not to see Tom, much less force you into their vision of that family, when the entire reason you broke up was that you didn't want that. OP needs to tell them that with this behavior, Tom's kid will be the only grandchild they will see, because they won't see any of her children like this. Yup. This OP should go no contact, and since they already have a grandchild, don't let them near your children. Whoa, not the idiot. Your parents are choosing an ex over you at every turn. I hope that your chosen family is better than them. I would recommend making a backup plan for Christmas with your close friends. I'd recommend making plans for Christmas, not as a backup, but as my main plans. Let them see what the future holidays will be if they continue to interfere in your personal life and not respecting your boundaries. As much as I'd like to support your hypothesis, I suspect they'll be so over the moon doting on their chosen son and watching their surrogate grandchild enjoying the magic of Christmas that they won't even notice the absence of OP. Next story. Am I the idiot for telling my parents I won't attend their Christmas celebration until they send my husband a separate invitation, plus mini update? I'll preface this by saying that my husband Luke, male 32, does not get along with my parents. You can't tell who's right or who's wrong, just that there's always this ongoing tension between them, but can be civil enough to sit together at one table. I recently got an invitation for Christmas celebration from my parents. The invitation including me and Luke, but Luke thought this was somewhat rude and disrespectful because he believes he should get his own invitation and not have his name mentioned as an extension to mine. We talked, and he said he wouldn't go unless they send him a proper invitation. I called Mom and asked if she could do it, and she thought it was ridiculous and said that she and Dad did the same with my sister and her husband. I told her it was fine, but Luke can be sensitive like that, and so a simple invitation in a form of a text directly to him will fix it. She got defensive and said that Luke is being ridiculous. Dad claimed that Luke is trying to pull some power move to humiliate them, but I thought this was a small issue. They still thought it was ridiculous, so I told them I won't attend if they don't send him a separate invitation, because he won't attend if he doesn't get it. This blew up, and my sister started arguing, saying Luke needs to get over himself and shamed me for trying to force our parents to send him an invitation by saying I won't come if they don't. We haven't talked after that, and we're waiting as of now. Edit. The invitation I received was in a text. Luke is saying that a simple text to him will finish the conflict, but my parents still think it's ridiculous and that they won't invite him since they already have. You're the idiot. Holy crap, that's not how invitations work. Couples always get invited together. He wouldn't be invited if he wasn't your husband. Why didn't you shut that nonsense down immediately? Your husband is a bigger idiot, but you enable him. You can't tell who's right or who's wrong. I kinda feel like I can. It's funny how OP can't tell who's right or who's wrong, but the whole of Reddit can. I'm guessing that Luke has been pulling crap like this for years, and OP is numb to it. Seriously, I don't know Luke, and I don't like him. Based on what OP has written, I imagine that Luke is like my ex-boyfriend. He would just talk at you until you saw things from his perspective. I ended up agreeing with him on the most ridiculous things. I became completely numb to his nonsense. He was manipulative and a bully. It's why I didn't want to make a judgment against OP. She is in the wrong, but if Luke is anything like my ex. Luke is the idiot, and you are too for condoning it. When you're married, you don't get separate invitations. Your mom called and said I hope you guys can come for Christmas, or we're looking forward to seeing you at Christmas. That is the royal you, not just you OP. Question, if a friend issued the same invitation as your mom did, would Luke be kicking up a fuss, or would he just go? This isn't about the invitation. Luke just doesn't want to go. Your choice is to stay with him, or go without him, but your parents don't have to issue Lukey Wubby his own special private invitation. And think hard. Is this really the only time he kicks up a fuss, or do you tiptoe around a lot of things? Be honest. I'd say that due to their constant disagreements, Luke has become so sensitive towards my parents, to the point where he'd take anything they do as a slight against him. It's exhausting trying to keep the peace between them, and trying to get them to see eye to eye. I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. Your husband sounds like the problem, to be honest. Absolutely this. Husband has an insanely fragile ego, and parents just aren't pandering to it. It's clear who the problem is here, and the dad is right, this is a weird power move. Your husband needs to touch some damn grass and get a grip OP. And now for the update. I just got off the phone with my sister. She told me our parents have just disinvited me from the celebration, and Luke was probably already disinvited since the argument occurred. I feel horrible, but I can't argue anymore, just like I can't argue about what everybody else in the comments is saying. I admit it. Luke is the problem. He just caused me to be disinvited from the event, and is blaming me for it. Next story. Am I wrong for telling my dad that my mom wouldn't pay my tuition? I, 20 female, have been raised by my dad, 40 male, pretty much my entire life. He and my mom, 40 female, co-parented until I was 1, but then she stopped coming to see me as often, and that eventually turned into her barely seeing me at all. When I was 4, she married her husband, 43 male, and they ended up moving away and having 3 kids together. I don't really know them that well, since I live in the same state as my dad and I didn't visit my mom much when I was younger. My parents basically had an unofficial agreement when my mom left, that she would pay my college tuition to make up for my dad never asking for child support. I'm at a community college, and I've gotten a few scholarships, so the payments have never been above $600. I have a semester left until I graduate, and I've already registered for the courses, so I texted my mom and told her what the down payment was and when it was due. She responded back saying that since I'm an adult and I have a job, I can afford the payments myself. I asked if she just couldn't afford to send anything right now, which would be fine, I wouldn't be upset about it or anything. But then she said that she shouldn't have to give money to me when I'm grown and no longer her responsibility. I ended up paying for it because I didn't want to deal with the overcharge fees, but I had to pick up an extra shift at work since I still needed to afford other stuff. My dad asked me why I was going in on my off day as I live at home with him, so I told him that I picked up another shift since I used my paycheck for tuition and I wanted to make up at least some money. He asked why I paid my tuition, and I said it was because my mom said she wouldn't. He ended up calling my mom while I was at work and basically telling her that if she didn't adhere to their agreement for as long as I'm in school, then he was going to go for back pay on child support and formally charge her for it. She texted me a few times, angry that I told my dad about it. She said that it's only one semester and I'm an adult now, so I should be expected to pay for it myself. I feel like a bit of a jerk now, since I guess I didn't really have to get my dad involved and tell him about it, but also like considering that the most she ever spent on me when I was a kid was the cost of a birthday card plus postage stamp once a year. I think paying for community college is a fair trade. Still, I just wanted to know if I was wrong here. Now for the top comments. Info out of curiosity for all Redditors out there. What man meets a woman, finds out that she's a deadbeat who abandoned her child, and thinks to himself, yes, I want her. She's the kind of human being I want to settle down and raise a family with. I'm dying to know, because stories like this are not rare around here. Is it just out of desperation on the guy's part or what? Because I can't imagine regarding someone who treated their own kid like OP's mother has, with anything but disgust. OP, you are not in the wrong, you deserve better. I hope your dad sues her, whether she pays up or not. That money was due to you over the years, it wasn't really his right to relinquish it on your behalf. Those funds could provide a handsome little nest egg, now that you are starting your independent adult life. Her husband apparently also has a daughter that he never sees, so I guess they bonded over that or something. And honestly, for my siblings' sake, I hope that my dad doesn't follow through with back pay. I'm almost done with school, so I guess I'll be okay, but I think it would suck for them if they missed out on things, because their mom was paying back child support. NTA. I hope you can update this in a few months and let us know that your dad has gotten back every penny of child support she weaseled her way out of. This OP. Dad should go after it all. Yes, both of these. Your mother has ducked all her responsibility for her first child, which is you, and it is shameful the way she is treating you. She had to deal with your father. It saved her lots of money over the years that she could have invested, saved, anything she wanted, so your tuition would be available for you. She agreed to this arrangement, and he and you have every right to hold her to it, or make her pay that back child support. She's a disgusting person. P.S. Her many quotes about you being an adult don't mean anything, but you are absolutely displaying so much more maturity and responsibility than her. I'm sure your father is very proud of the young adult you have become. Last story. Am I wrong for asking for my mom's handwritten recipes back? My mother passed away a few months ago. While we were cleaning out our house, my daughter-in-law took her box of handwritten recipes because she wanted to make a recipe book for Christmas for everyone in the family. I thought that was a nice idea, so had no problem with her taking the recipes. Last Friday, we had a family dinner where she gave everyone the recipe books. It was very nice and everyone loved them. And I thought she would bring the handwritten ones, but she didn't. I texted her on set asking if I can have them back the next time we see each other, to make sure each of her grandkids got some of her handwritten ones, but never got a response. My son came over yesterday with the box of recipes, but told me his wife felt very disrespected. She made recipes book for all of us, and she didn't think I appreciated the effort, and I was being ungrateful asking for the handwritten ones back when she assumed they were given to her to keep, and she is disappointed she will not have them. I never meant to give them to her to keep, just to make the recipe book, which are nice, but most of the recipes in there are ones she never made. Daughter-in-law was only around for the last few years while she was sick, and never really got to experience her cooking. She even left out most of my mother's staple dishes that she made all the time, and all her grandkids remembered. I don't hold that against her, but it's the truth. I told my son I was sorry, and do appreciate the books she made for everyone, but he told me they need to take a little break from me. Yeah, no. Daughter-in-law did a kind thing with creating the books for everyone, but it doesn't automatically mean that she gets to keep the handwritten originals. She has the book of all of the recipes that she felt were important, so she's not missing out on anything by you dividing the original copies amongst all of the grandkids. It just feels more like an ego thing rather than a sentimental one. I think so too, and this is what is bugging me. She hardly knew my mother, as she was very sick for the last few years and not herself. They were not close, so how they could be sentimental to her, I don't know. She never even got to eat food my mother prepared. Not wrong. Just as you said, you want the handwritten originals to stay with you, so you can pass them on to grandkids. You can also now make copies of all of your mom's recipes that were family favorites. It feels like one of those weird power grabs that never make sense. She wants to keep something that she has no history with. Why? Right. They are a family heirloom, and not sure who she thinks she is, but she is not entitled to keep them. They are yours, and you have the right to ask for them back. Whether you want to share with the grandkids or keep them for yourself, they are yours to do what you please. Not wrong. Your son's wife is a huge jerk for trying to keep them. No reasonable person would assume they were being given someone else's grandmother's handwritten recipes. Right. Not only did she try to take OP's mother's handwritten recipes, she left key recipes out of the book. She was purposely trying to steal her recipes and hoard them for herself, which is super messed up because OP was willing to share all the recipes with everyone. Then to call OP disrespectful because she wouldn't let her pretend that they belonged to her. DIL and son can take all the time they need if this is how they are going to behave.